Welcome, curious minds, to Alternatify. Here we peel back the layers of history, daring to ask the most profound what-if questions. We journey into the uncharted territories of alternate realities, where a single change can reshape everything. Today, we confront a truly monumental historical pivot point. What if the Black Death, that devastating 14th century plague, had simply never happened? Imagine a world untouched by its terrifying shadow. This isn't just a thought experiment, it's an exploration of a completely different civilization. The ripple effects of such an absence would echo through centuries, altering the very fabric of our known world. Prepare to witness a history that never was. Let us first recall medieval Europe in the early 1300s. It was a vibrant yet brutal patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and city-states. A burgeoning population was pushing the limits of its agricultural capacity, and trade routes were expanding. Societal structures were deeply entrenched. The feudal system dominated, binding peasants to the land and lords to their vassals. The church wielded immense power, shaping both spiritual and temporal life. Yet nascent capitalism was beginning to stir. Without the plague's devastating culling, Europe's population would have continued its relentless ascent. This unchecked growth would have intensified pressure on every available resource. Land, food, and jobs would become increasingly scarce commodities. This demographic pressure would have profoundly altered historical trajectories. The feudal system, already showing cracks, might have persisted far longer. Its slow decay would have delayed the transition to a more dynamic market economy. The Church's immense influence would likely have remained stronger, unchallenged by the existential crisis the plague presented. This could have significantly delayed, or even prevented, the Protestant Reformation as we know it. The Renaissance, often seen as a direct consequence of the plague's societal upheaval, might have been delayed. Or, perhaps, it would have taken a completely different form, lacking the same urgent catalyst for change and introspection. Consider the economic changes in this alternate timeline. Without the massive labor shortages caused by the plague, there would be less pressure for technological innovation. Slower technological progress would be the norm. Laborers would find their bargaining power significantly diminished. With an abundant workforce, wages would likely remain low and working conditions could be harsher. The value of human life, in economic terms, might be less appreciated. Capitalism's evolution would be far more gradual. The sudden shift from feudalism to a more market-driven economy, accelerated by the plague, would not occur. Guilds, with their restrictive practices, would remain dominant for much longer. Urban development would continue, but with different implications. Cities would grow denser, potentially leading to even worse sanitation and living conditions. Social hierarchies would remain more rigid, with less opportunity for upward mobility. The very fabric of society would be more conservative. Innovation, both social and economic, would be stifled by the sheer weight of tradition and an oversupply of labor. The world would feel more static, less dynamic. Now, let us turn our gaze to the age of exploration. Would it have unfolded in the same way? Less urgency for new trade routes might have prevailed. Europe, preoccupied with internal population pressures, might have focused on consolidating existing power. The impact on the Americas would be profoundly different and likely far more brutal. With a larger, more desperate European population, colonization could have been even more rapid and overwhelming. Indigenous populations might have faced an even swifter demise. The transatlantic slave trade, a horrific chapter in our history, might have been less extensive, or it could have taken a different form entirely as altered labor demands in Europe and its colonies reshaped the need for enslaved people. Global power dynamics would be unrecognizable. The balance of power among emerging empires would shift dramatically. Patterns of disease spread too would be altered as European populations, unculled by the plague, ventured forth. Imagine a world where European expansion was driven by sheer demographic pressure rather than economic opportunity. the consequences for the rest of the globe would be equally, if not more, devastating. The pace of scientific and technological progress would undoubtedly be slower. The plague, by forcing people to question old beliefs and seek new solutions, inadvertently spurred innovation. Without that urgency, advancements would crawl. The Renaissance, as we understand it, would be reimagined. It would be a slower, more gradual process, perhaps focusing on different intellectual areas. The humanism that emerged from the plague's devastation might not have taken root so deeply. Medical development would also suffer. The Black Death forced a re-evaluation of public health and sanitation. Without such a catastrophic event, the evolution of medicine would be significantly delayed, with less emphasis on preventative measures. Key inventions and revolutions would be postponed or altered. The printing press, a catalyst for the spread of knowledge, might have been invented later. The scientific and industrial revolutions too would be delayed or take entirely different paths. The very concept of progress as a driving force might be less pronounced. A world without the plague's shockwave would be one where established norms and traditional knowledge held sway for much longer. Let us fast forward to what would be our modern world. The political landscape would be vastly different. The development of nation-states, often forged in the crucible of plague-induced social upheaval, might be delayed. Or entirely different political entities might have emerged. The economic landscape would be far more conservative. Without the demographic reset and subsequent labor shortages, innovation would be slower, growth would be less dynamic, and the global economy we know would be unrecognizable. The social landscape would also be more conservative. Stronger social hierarchies would persist, with less social mobility. Tradition would hold an even greater sway, potentially stifling individual freedoms and expressions. Culturally, the world would be less diverse. The cross-pollination of ideas, often accelerated by crisis and subsequent societal restructuring, would be diminished. Technological advancement would be significantly less sophisticated. Imagine a world where the Enlightenment was a whisper, not a roar, where industrialization was a distant dream, not a reality. This alternate present would be a stark contrast to our own. It is tempting to view the absence of such a catastrophe as purely positive. However, the reality is far more nuanced. There are potential advantages to this alternate timeline, though they come with significant caveats. One might argue for greater social stability. Without the plague's disruptive force, societies might have experienced slower, more deliberate change. The preservation of tradition could be seen as a benefit, maintaining established order. However, the potential drawbacks are profound. Increased social inequality would be a likely outcome, with a vast, impoverished underclass. Slower technological progress would limit human potential and quality of life. Limited social mobility would mean fewer opportunities for individuals to improve their circumstances. This static society, while stable, might also be stagnant, lacking the dynamism that often arises from adversity. Ultimately, the outcome is complex, multifaceted, and inherently unpredictable. History is not a simple equation. The absence of one variable creates a cascade of unforeseen consequences, both positive and negative. Consider the cascading changes that would have occurred. Every aspect of modern life as we know it would be different. Our political systems, our economic structures, our social norms, our cultural expressions, and our technological advancements would all be profoundly altered. The very languages we speak, the borders on our maps, the philosophies we embrace, and the scientific principles we understand would all bear the imprint of this alternate history. Our present is inextricably linked to that pivotal past. This exercise underscores the immense importance of understanding history. It is not merely a collection of dates and names. It is the story of cause and effect, of pivotal moments that shaped everything that came after. By understanding the past, we gain a deeper comprehension of the present. We can better appreciate the forces that shaped our world, and perhaps gain insight into the potential futures that lie before us. So, we return to our starting point. The Black Death, a horrifying tragedy, was also an undeniable catalyst. Its absence would not have created a utopia, but rather a profoundly different world, one that is almost impossible for us to fully grasp. It reminds us that history is not a linear progression. It is a complex web of interconnected events, where even the smallest change can send ripples across centuries. Every moment, every decision, every catastrophe shapes the next. What other what-ifs intrigue you? What other pivotal moments in history do you believe could have fundamentally altered our world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this journey through an alternate reality sparked your curiosity, please like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the fabric of time. Your engagement helps us continue these fascinating discussions.